are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and for all right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast, and for the final.
Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
And welcome everybody to another edition of the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. As always, I'm your host, Kenneth Grunfelder, and it's great to have everybody here on this Wednesday, February 28th. We have a lot to talk about on the show today, but before I get into that, just want to remind you guys, as always, to tip or donate and get your comments recognized, make sure to go to the following link. That is streamelements.com/GSMC-sportsnetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is streamelements.com/GSMC-sportsnetwork./tip. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. So with that being said, let's get into what we are going to talk about for today. So we're going to start off the show. We're going to talk about the running backs on the open market, guys like Saquon Barkley, Derrick Henry, Josh Jacobs, Tony Pollard, all those guys. We'll talk about what could possibly happen in the offseason. And now in the last segment, I'm going to be conflicting myself a little bit, but I'll talk about how most likely a lot of these guys aren't going to get the franchise tag. Then in the second part of the show, we'll talk about the Raiders and basically them saying that Davante Adams is a Raider. He's not going anywhere, so we'll talk about that. Then in the third part of the show, we will also get into discussing, again, running backs as well. I mean, Saquon Barkley, we're going to discuss more later in the show. So let's get into, hold on. Well, the third topic of the show is, we're going to be talking about the Buffalo Bills and Sean McDermott. And him basically saying that it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when the Bills are going to win the Super Bowl. And then we'll get into Saquon Barkley as well. So, that's the rundown for the show for today. Yeah, sorry, I was drawing a blank there for a second. But, yeah, so those are the topics. So let's get into the first one, which is discussing the top running backs on the open market. So, yeah, there's a lot of them. And this is something that I've discussed over the last week or so. Big names out there. You got Saquon Barkley, who we'll talk about later in the show, and what Joe Shane, the general manager of the Giants, had to say. But yeah, you also got Derrick Henry, you got Josh Jacobs, Tony Pollard, DeAndre Swift. There's a lot of big names out there, and some of them could be finding new homes. Now, I was just looking before. The Raiders are going to go pretty hard to try to re-sign Josh Jacobs. If that ends up not happening, I know, Zamir White did a nice job filling in for him when he did get hurt. So we'll see, what ends up happening there. But you also have Derrick Henry out there. And, he's probably not going back to Tennessee. He's going to be going somewhere else. And, he's the oldest running back, out of the ones that are available. Also, Austin Eckler is another name that I failed to mention. So I kind of want to just go look at, the stats for each of these guys, and, where they could potentially end up. So, if I could just pull up the rushing yards here. All right, that's, they got the postseason stats. We don't want that. We want the overall stats for the season. But, listen, some of these guys missed time due to injury. Saquon Barkley missed a few games. Josh Jacobs missed a few games. Some guys are coming off of not so great seasons. I mean, Tony Pollard had a down season. But yeah, I mean, let's look at that. So Derrick Henry, out of the guys that are available, he led all the guys in rushing. Christian McCaffrey was the leading rusher this in 2023. But yeah, Derrick Henry had 1,100 yards rushing, 12 rushing touchdowns. DeAndre Swift, he had over 1,000 yards. He had 5 rushing touchdowns on the season. Tony Pollard had over 1,000 yards. He had 6 rushing touchdowns. So he still broke 1,000 yards. But, you could tell that some of the explosiveness was not there from Pollard. Saquon had 962 rushing yards and 6 touchdowns. Eckler missed some time, so he's going to be lower. Yeah, so he only had 628 rushing yards and 5 rushing touchdowns. But those are some guys. And then you also have some of the Ravens running backs as well, like J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards. They're also free agents as well. So, I mean, there's a lot. And, there could also be some guys that end up getting released that could end up joining that list. So it is going to be really interesting what ends up happening. Again, for me, I'm not confident that the Giants are going to keep Saquon Barkley. I think he's going to end up going somewhere else. But I don't know. I mean, they're going to try to make it a priority to bring him back. So we'll see what ends up happening there. But, and like I said, the Raiders are going to try to bring Josh Jacobs back. I mean, listen, Josh Jacobs, he had a great season in 2022. Last year, again, dealt with some injuries, but, is still a good running back. And, I think the Raiders are going to want to keep him around, especially with what they decide to do at quarterback. Yeah, so he ended up having 805 rushing yards and 6 touchdowns. The year before that, 1,600 yards rushing, 12 rushing touchdowns. So, we'll see if they end up keeping him. But, I mean, it really is incredible the amount of big names that are out there. And I know I saw Greg Roman made some comments, the Chargers' new OC, and he said, imagine Justin Herbert with a good running game. So I don't know is that kind of taking a shot at Austin Eckler? Listen, Eckler is more of a pass catcher than he is, a running back. I think we could all say that. But, is a dynamic playmaker. And, the Chargers, they used to have like that 1-2 combination with Eckler and Melvin Gordon. But obviously that was before Herbert's time. Now, we'll see what they end up doing. Whether they address the position through the draft, do they bring back Eckler? That remains to be seen. But it really is amazing how many big names there are out there. And again, could be more on the list as well. I mean, it really is up in the air where a lot of these guys could end up. I mean, you could look at certain situations. The Texans, I've brought up numerous times. The Ravens could maybe look to add one of these guys because also, I mean, at the trade deadline, they were trying to add Derrick Henry, but that just ended up not happening. So I don't know. Maybe they go after him now. He did torment them in the playoffs. So, maybe, and then there was that overtime game back in 2020. So maybe, they bring him in. He could also, but also, I look at the Eagles too. I did mention that maybe he wants to reunite with A.J. Brown and he goes to Philly. I know Dallas has been mentioned. I'm really curious to see where a lot of these guys end up. I mean, also Tampa as well. Maybe, somebody they bring in to pair with Rachaad White. I know when I was listening to the radio yesterday, the Bears are another team as well. You got Khalil Herbert, you got Roshan Johnson, you add somebody else to that room. I know they had Deontay Foreman, but he's probably not coming back. So, we'll see. There's a lot of teams out there that could use a running back. I know there were some rumors out there that, the Bengals, they could release Joe Mixon. And he kind of, shut those rumors down. So, but we'll see what ends up happening there, if they maybe cut Joe Mixon. There are plenty of teams that could use running backs. And there's a lot of big names out there. I mean, we talk about the Giants, if they lose Barkley, maybe they try to go after one of the other running. I don't know. I mean, again, that's just all speculation. I'm just throwing it out there. But yeah, I mean, it's this is something that we really haven't seen, is just a lot of these big name running backs. I mean, because again, like I said, these were like the top 10 picks in my fantasy draft not too long ago. Now all of a sudden they're all free agents at the moment. And we'll see, if one of their respective teams indeed does use the franchise tag, although it does seem like it's unlikely for most of them. But now, with what Joe Shane had to say at the Combine, there's maybe a chance that they use the franchise tag on Barkley. So again, we'll talk about that at the end of the show. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting because, and again, this just shows you where the running back position is going. With obviously they had that meeting, not too long ago about their contract situations and how teams really aren't giving them the money that they they desire. But yeah, I mean, it's a position where you age pretty quickly. Now it's we're kind of, again, we're away from the days, at least in my lifetime, of Adrian Peterson and Marshawn Lynch. Those guys, you thought they were never going to retire, but and Derrick Henry, again, he's 30, but you know what? He's still got some. I think he's still got some juice left. I mean, it definitely at times it was rough with the Titans, but at least in 2023. But I think in the right situation, it could definitely work out. And Saquon Barkley obviously still got some solid years left in him. Austin Eckler is going to be interesting. We'll see if he goes back to the Chargers, if he goes somewhere else. How is he going to be? Tony Pollard, again, another year removed from the injury that he suffered in the playoff game against the 49ers. Josh Jacobs, do the Raiders get him back? Like I said, they're going to try to bring him back. And you know what? Listen, we don't know what the situation is at quarterback. So, you want to keep as many playmakers as possible around him. And we'll get into the other playmaker in a second. Well, in the second segment. So, yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot to talk about leading up to when eventually these guys, I mean, teams are going to pick these guys up, I believe. And then you also, again, you got DeAndre Swift out there, some Ravens running backs as well. We'll have to see. Also, something else that I saw regarding Nick Chubb. So the Browns were talking about Deshaun Watson and Chubb. They said Deshaun Watson's going to start throwing in March, but they weren't as positive with Nick Chubb. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Chubb if they maybe move off of him. Because again, that's another name that you could add to the list if they for some reason don't bring him back. But we'll have to wait and see. So, and I know when I talked about the cap casualties and Aaron Jones and Alvin Kamara were names that I saw. Now again, that doesn't mean that they are necessarily going to be cut, but it definitely is possible. So, but yeah, I mean, listen, free agency is it's going to be here before we know it. Start of that, and teams are going to be making moves, and it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting because we definitely could see a lot of these guys switching teams. And again, I mean, there's teams that need running backs. The Texans are one of those teams that comes to mind. I know I named several others, but I would love to see now C.J. Stroud, you bring in one of those running backs to go along with him in that passing game. Their offense is only going to be better next year. So I'm hoping that, the Texans do that. Or they go out and they draft a running back. That's, again, another possibility. And like I mentioned this, I think, yesterday, the Eagles, their running back room is pretty much empty at the moment. So they could be looking to bring in one of these guys, or maybe they bring back Swift. Again, remains to be seen. But, the Eagles, listen, what made them successful in 2022 is also a good running game. So, and you got some running backs out there that they could go after. So, again, just have to wait and see. But, yeah, that's pretty much it when talking about this. Let me know what you guys think. Do you have any predictions on where some of these players could end up? So, when we come back from our first break of the show, we will talk about the Raiders more. I know we talked about Josh Jacobs, but we're now going to talk about them basically saying that Davante Adams is not going anywhere. He is going to be a Raider for the foreseeable future. So, with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on the fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows for 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift. Oh.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the second part of the show, we're now going to talk about the Raiders and them basically saying Davante Adams is not going anywhere. But I was looking at my sports chat, so I know the Falcons, they released Jonnu Smith, one of their tight ends. But also, recently, this was earlier this morning, the Chiefs actually released Marquez Valdez-Scantling, one of their wide receivers. So that's definitely an interesting move. Obviously, he had some problems with drops. He was one of the receivers that had problems holding on to the ball. But he did have that go-ahead touchdown in the Super Bowl to put the Chiefs ahead for the first time. And he did make some big catches in the postseason the last couple of years. So, yeah, like we've been talking about, the Chiefs, the wide receiver position is something they're going to have to address. And, letting go of MVS, again, that just supports that even more. So now he's free to go, to another team. I did see on Twitter, I'm still calling it Twitter, I did see someone posted on the bottom, it's like a video of LeBron James making a face, and it says Aaron Rodgers seeing this. So maybe MVS ends up with the Jets. And actually, this is something I think we'll talk about maybe tomorrow, but Mecole Hardman had a lot to say about his time with the Jets, even though it was very brief. So I do want to touch upon that tomorrow. Yeah, so let's get into the Raiders. So I know there was some, again, more speculation on if the Raiders, maybe they trade Davante Adams. Because I know, the Jets, they were trying to make a push for him, to, reunite him with Aaron Rodgers. But the Raiders, they don't want to do that. They don't want to do that. And, I don't know. During the season, it looked like Davante Adams maybe wanted out because, Garoppolo was starting. They were losing games. But then Antonio Pierce takes over. They make the switch over to Aiden O'Connell. And they still ended up finishing, with a better record than it looked like they were going to. Because they looked like a team that was going to finish with one of the worst records in the NFL. But they made the coaching change. They made the quarterback change. Now, again, is Aiden O'Connell the long-term answer? I don't think so. But at least he definitely was better than what Garoppolo was giving them. And now Garoppolo, being suspended and them releasing him, right now it's Aiden O'Connell. So, and we'll see how the Raiders address the quarterback position. And I think, listen, Davante Adams went to the Raiders because he wanted to play with Derek Carr. Now, Derek Carr is not there. So this is kind of the situation that he's in. So again, we'll see how the Raiders address the quarterback position. But basically, the general manager for the Raiders said that Davante Adams is a Raider, and the Raiders are committed to keeping him. Rodgers did try to recruit Davante to the Jets, but the Raiders just have no intention on trading him. Again, this is something that was talked about for a while, just Davante Adams being discussed in trade rumors, but it's not going to happen. He's going to stay. But yeah, the Raiders, they have a lot of they got a lot of things they need to address on the team. Again, also improving the defense. Again, the quarterback position right now, I think, is a top priority. And I think they would view that the same as well. Like I said, they're also pushing to re-sign Josh Jacobs. So, the Raiders, I think they're a team that's hopefully on the come up. But yeah, the first 2 seasons with the Raiders, Davante Adams has been solid. In 2022, had 100 receptions, 1,500 yards receiving, 14 touchdowns. In 2023, he had 103 receptions for 1,144 yards and 8 touchdowns. And again, you had Garoppolo, you had Brian Hoyer, you had Aiden O'Connell playing quarterback. It was a mess at the quarterback position. But again, the Raiders played better down the stretch, and I mean, we'll see what ends up happening next year. I know I talked about, Antonio Pierce and him saying that they have the blueprint to stop Patrick Mahomes. But yeah, you got to deal with the Chiefs still. The Chargers, you figure, are going to be better. And who knows what's going to happen with the Broncos. And this is something else that we'll talk about probably, over the next couple of days or week or so. But Sean Payton basically said that a decision on Russell Wilson is coming within the next couple of weeks. So got to keep an eye on that. I mean, I think most of us believe that he's going to get released, but only time will tell. So, but I think, the Raiders, them standing firm on this, at least, that's good for Raiders fans. I mean, again, Davante Adams is one of the best receivers in the NFL. I know since him and Aaron Rodgers kind of split, he's kind of been forgotten a little bit. Because, I mean, when him and Rodgers were together, I mean, Davante Adams was the best. I mean, I think Davante Adams still is the best receiver in the NFL. It's just right now his quarterback situation is not the best, and obviously he's getting older now. It's again, not too long ago they had the Packers-Cowboys playoff game airing on NFL Network, and that was Davante Adams' rookie year. And now we're all the way here. I mean, 10 years later, basically. And it's just, again, crazy how time flies. And again, Packers fans, they wanted to get rid of Davante Adams because his second season, I mean, he really just he wasn't good. But then we know what happened after that. I mean, he literally went on to become their go-to guy, and he became one of the best receivers in the NFL, and still is. Even with the quarterback situation in Vegas, he still was good. Still over 1,000 yards. So now, you get the Raiders, they bring in a better quarterback. I mean, that's only going to help him. But, so Davante Adams is not going to go anywhere. And again, that helps the Raiders, but, again, they still have a lot of issues that, they got to, they still got some issues that they have to address. And the quarterback position is the most important, and we'll see what they end up doing in the draft. Because there are quarterbacks that they could go after. And, again, that'll be beneficial for their pass catchers. And again, we'll see if they're able to bring back Josh Jacobs as well. But yeah, I mean, I think this is a team that's, heading in the right direction somewhat. Especially because, Antonio Pierce, when he took over, the team started playing better. So now they're going to give him a shot, see what he does full season as a coach. As in the past, like you had Rick Bisaccia who took over for John Gruden, and the Raiders made the playoffs, but then they ended up going with Josh McDaniels, and that just did not pan out. Derek Carr, they, let him go. They bring in Jimmy Garoppolo. and it just didn't work out. But Josh McDaniels, I guess, wanted his guy. I mean, they had Jimmy Garoppolo, Brian Hoyer, Jacoby Myers. Jacoby Myers is a good player, but it's just like, they're bringing some Patriot guys over, and it's like, I mean, I feel like you could have just kept Derek Carr, but that's what he wanted to do, and now Garoppolo is not even on the team, so I mean, again, this division is going to be very competitive. Well, I mean, the Chargers, I think, will be better with Harbaugh. I'm curious to see what they end up doing with their cap situation, because they do have a lot of guys that are making a lot of money, and some of those guys could end up leaving. The Broncos, their quarterback situation. I mean, the Chiefs are going to be the team to beat. That's what you got to, but you got to start it off by getting another quarterback, that can compete with Patrick Mahomes. And it's, I don't know if you're going to essentially get that, but you definitely need to get an upgrade over Aiden O'Connell. The division, I know I said the competitive, but I meant like the division is going to be better. But again, it's still probably going to be the Chiefs at the top, of course. But at least like with the teams that are, second through fourth, that's, they're going to be competing. I mean, listen, the Raiders and the Broncos did beat the Chiefs. They did. And that was with Mahomes playing. The Chargers, they almost beat them, but that was the last game of the season and really nobody was playing. But, listen, I mean, holding on to Davante Adams is important, because whatever rookie quarterback you decide to bring in, if that's the route they go, which most likely is, again, you want to surround him with as much talent as possible. And Davante Adams is not, not a bad thing, not a bad player to have, a really good player. So, we'll see what the Raiders end up doing. I mean, again, you got one of the best wide receivers in the NFL for your rookie quarterback if you go that route. So, and if you bring back Josh Jacobs, you got a good running game to rely on as well. So, I mean, I feel like whatever quarterback they decide to bring in, they are not stepping into a bad situation. Now, again, Antonio Pierce, this is going to be, this is his time now. He's going to be the full-time coach. First full season. So we'll see how, that ends up going. But, and also, again, like we talk about the division, the conference is loaded. So, I mean, they're going to be trying to compete for a wild card spot. Because, again, I know, like I said, division will be more competitive. But it's going to be the Chiefs division. So you really got to look to the wild card to try to make it. And you're going to have a lot of teams that you're going to have to fight with to try to, get into the playoffs, if that's your intention. And, right now it's, like I said, the conference is loaded. So, but listen, they're holding on to Davante Adams. They're going to try to keep Josh Jacobs. So we'll see what they end up doing with the quarterback position. And listen, again, the defense played better. So, again, like I said, we'll have to wait and see. But before we go to break, just want to remind you guys once again to tip or donate and get your comments recognized. Make sure to go to the following link. That is streamelements.com/GSMCSportsNetwork./tip. Again, that really helps the show, makes the show more interactive between myself, the host, and you guys, the viewers. Again, that is streamelements.com/GSMCSportsNetwork./tip. And as always, it is displayed on the ticker on the bottom of the show segment down below. So, when we come back from our second break of the show, we will discuss Sean McDermott's comments. See, I remembered this time. Again, I don't know why in the beginning I just drew a blank as to, the third topic I was talking about. But, yeah, we're going to talk about Sean McDermott and him basically, talking about the Bills getting to the Super Bowl and, and winning it, because that's something that they, been trying to do these last couple of seasons, and they've, they haven't gotten that close. Well, they've gotten somewhat close, but they haven't gotten to a Super Bowl and have a chance to win it. So that is what we will discuss when we come back from our second break of the show. So with that being said, stick around and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, and we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we're going to talk about Sean McDermott and his recent comments on the Bills. So basically, he was just talking about how, it's a matter, I think he said it's a matter of not if, but when the Bills get to, a Super Bowl and win it. He's very confident that the team can take that next step and get there eventually. But I don't know. I feel like at the same time, there was definitely talk that he could lose his job because the Bills at one point 6-6. It was going to take a miracle for them to make the playoffs, but you know what? They did it. They did make it, and they went from like possibly not making the playoffs to being the 2 seed. And you got to give them credit. They made it. But, again, same story, different year. They end up falling to the Kansas City Chiefs once again. And this time at home. Because, again, they played them in 2 previous playoff games against, in Arrowhead. And they lost both of them. The AFC Championship game, and you remember Stephon Diggs was watching the celebration. And then the year after that, you had one of the greatest playoff games of all time that went into overtime, and they lost that game. And let's not forget last year or 2 years ago. Again, I say last year, 2 years, whatever. Against the Bengals in the divisional round. Bengals they came into Buffalo and they really brought it to the Bills. I thought that game was going to be more competitive, but yeah, the Bengals handled their business against the Bills in Buffalo. And then, you got this, in 2023 now, the Chiefs, they come in, Patrick Mahomes' first road playoff game, and the Chiefs get the win. And, that was a disappointing loss for the Bills. There's things that happened in the game that, you can't really blame. There was a lot of blame to go around. You had Stephon Diggs dropping that pass. Thankfully the fake punt didn't hurt them because then the Chiefs fumbled at the 1-yard line. And then of course you have Tyler Bass, missing the field goal. There's a lot of blame to go around. But yeah, this team just continues to fall short. And again, Sean McDermott, if the Bills don't make the playoffs, does he keep his job? This is kind of, I think, their last chance. And again, there's all that speculation on whether Stephon Diggs wants out or not. Right now, he's a Buffalo Bill. So, when the Bills brought him in, that just elevated Josh Allen to a new level. And, now if he ends up leaving, what happens to Josh Allen? But, and also you could look at the defense. The defense is getting older. They got a lot of free agents, that they're going to, some key guys out there that they, are going to have to, try to re-sign. But, it's just, they've just continued to fall short. And, this is a team that you expect to do more. And again, this was their year to do it. This was their year to do it. And again, they just they fell a little short of that. But you look at some of the free agents. You got Micah Hyde, you got Leonard Floyd, Taylor Rapp, Jordan Phillips, Shaq Lawson, AJ Epineza. I think, what is it? Epinenza. That's how you say it. You also got Gabe Davis too, who didn't even play in the playoff game against the Chiefs. So yeah, forgive me, my allergies are acting up here. So we'll see what they end up doing, who they try to bring back. But yeah, that was the other thing too. The defense is getting older, and They gotta try to get younger on that side of the ball too, so it's definitely something that we got to keep an eye on. But I don't know. I feel like you're talking Super Bowl, and they haven't really got they've taken a step back, So I don't know. We'll just have to wait and see, but I don't know. That's just how the Bills season has gone. These last couple seasons have gone, and it's been an issue. But that's just how it's unfortunate, So, but again, that's just what's happened. Oh, sorry. I hit the wrong thing on my camera. I apologize for that. Sometimes that happens. You hit the wrong button, but it happens. How many times do I have camera issues? But actually we've been good. We've been good lately. So but yeah, with the Bills though, how many times have I talked about how the Chiefs, this team at points during the year looked like they weren't going to get back to the Super Bowl. And, it's, they're going to be better next year. They're going to have more playmakers. I just talked about how, Marquez Valdez-Scantling got released. They're going to try to improve the wide receiver core. And once they do that, you could be seeing the Chiefs back to being that juggernaut offense again. And being a balanced team, having a great passing game. Now, of course, it helps when you have Patrick Mahomes. And Travis Kelce, we'll see, how he is next year. But if you surround Mahomes with better playmakers, wide receiver-wise, to go along with their running game, that's going to be a balanced Chiefs offense, So you got them to deal with. You look at the teams in the AFC North. Right now, I still look at the Bills as probably the best team in their division. Because the Patriots are in rebuild mode. We don't know, what's going to happen with Aaron Rodgers and the Jets. But, because their thing is they got to fix their offensive line. That's been a problem. And, if they don't fix that offensive line, then it's not going to work again. So, again, that's something that we'll have to continue to keep an eye on with the Jets and what they decide to do. But it's definitely a division that you look at the Bills. And they probably end up, if things go right, they end up being that team that takes the division again. It's still early to say, but we thought the Dolphins were going to be the team to do it. But they kind of, I don't want to say they collapsed, but they just, they kind of didn't play well towards the end of the year. So, But that's just what happened. I mean, it happened to a couple teams. They just did not play well towards the end of the year. And, I mean, again, the Bills, they could have been the 7th. They could have missed the playoffs, or they could have been, they ended up being the 2 seed. I just thought it was crazy, but that ended up happening. They ended up being the 2 seed, and it really didn't matter. Because, like I said, the Chiefs, I mean, the Steelers almost came back against them. But now, again, the Bills were always in control of that game, but, it's, they ended up winning that game, but against the Chiefs, you knew it was going to be tough, but, yeah, they fell short again. And again, this is going to be a big year for this coaching staff because they got to get it. They got to get it done this time, because if they don't, so guys are going to probably lose their jobs. So, and again, we talked about the AFC earlier. It's a loaded conference. Conference is only getting better. You look at the young quarterbacks that are coming in, and the AFC South. I mean, we talked about it. That division, at the beginning of the year, you thought, yeah, it's not going to really be that competitive. It's the Jags division to lose. But look what ended up happening. Look at the year that C.J. Stroud ended up having. You're going to have to deal with that. I mean, I think the Jets with Aaron Rodgers, if he's healthy, I think, of course they're going to be better. But how much better? And you still got the Dolphins to worry about too. There's a lot. And then, of course, you got Mahomes' division, and, the Chargers, they're hopefully going to be improved with Herbert coming back healthy, with Harbaugh now as the coach. The Broncos and the Raiders have quarterback issues, but listen, the Broncos beat the Bills. And, not to say if they matched up again, would that be the same outcome? But yeah, it's, conference is loaded. And, the Bills, the last couple of seasons, they haven't, I mean, the start of 2022, I mean, they beat the defending champs, the Rams on opening night. I mean, they were putting up points like crazy, and everyone's like, oh, this team is going to be the team to go to the Super Bowl. And that ended up not happening. I mean, the Chiefs game was back and forth. Against the Bengals, I mean, the Bengals dominated that game from start to finish. It's just, even at home, you got the home field advantage, and it still doesn't matter. So, yeah, the Bills have been a disappointment. I mean, we'll see what they end up doing if they try to go out and maybe add a wide receiver as well, because, outside of Stephon Diggs, I mean, who scares you? I know Khalil Shakir, he was making plays for them when Gabe Davis got hurt, but Gabe Davis probably isn't coming back. I mean, I could be wrong. I know, they got a couple of nice tight ends, Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox, but they need another threat besides Stephon Diggs. And now I know people are saying Stephon Diggs is starting to decline as well, but I don't know. We'll see. That's really what it comes down to. We'll just have to wait and see. But, yeah, I mean, listen, Sean McDermott, love the optimism, but I think you also got to keep things in perspective a little bit. Because the if or when might happen when you're not even there. So, and I think if the Bills have another early playoff exit, or they just, I mean, definitely if they miss the playoffs, he's not coming back. But another early playoff exit there might need to be some changes. So, but let me know what you guys think about what McDermott had to say. So, when we come back from our final break of the show, we'll talk about the Giants trying to bring back Saquon Barkley, whether they could use the franchise tag or not. We'll talk about what Joe Shane, the general manager, had to say when we come back from our final break of the show. So stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the final part of the show, we're going to talk about what General Manager of the Giants, Joe Schoen, had to say recently at the Combine. So he did talk about Saquon Barkley and how, spoke very highly of Barkley. That he is, one of the leaders on the team and that they're going to try to, bring him back, reach an agreement on a long-term deal. But it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. But what was interesting is, and this is where I said I'm kind of contradicting myself, conflicting myself a little bit, and that is that he didn't rule out the possibility of them using the franchise tag again. Now, I know I talked about how it's going to be higher this year than it was last year, I believe, when they franchise tagged Barkley. So I'm interested to see if that ends up happening. Because and Barkley definitely does not want that to happen. But I mean, on one hand, the Giants didn't trade him, so they're going to do everything they can to try to bring him back. Me personally, I think he's going to end up leaving. I feel like they're just not going to come to an agreement. And if they do, great. But I don't know. I just feel like at this point, I think he's probably walking. He's going somewhere else. And I feel like he should want to go somewhere else. Now, again, if the Giants franchise tag him, that's a different story. But, the Giants right now, their situation is not great. Now, Daniel Jones, he's going to end up being the starter again next year. And see, that just goes to show. Now, between that and also, it seems like the Giants weren't going to franchise tag him, and now there's a possibility that could happen. That just goes to show you, you don't really know anything. It's just, you could also never assume. And, because when Daniel Jones got hurt, I said, yeah, this is probably it for him. He's probably not coming back. But it looks like he's going to be the starter. At least, maybe he's going to be the stopgap. And then they're, if they draft somebody, that player, quarterback, is going to take over for Daniel Jones. There's also a possibility with that. But I don't know. And again, Saquon Barkley does not want to get the franchise tag again. But you know what? Saquon Barkley, he's the best offensive player on the team. And, you end up letting him walk. I mean, that's another area you're going to have to address. But again, like I said, there are so many issues on this team, that they should prioritize the offensive line, the quarterback, wide receiver. I mean, the offense has not been good. And the Giants brought in Brian Dable to try to fix this offense. Well, also just to, make the team better in general. But, yeah, I mean, he's an offensive guy. And the team just did not perform in 2023. And like I said, after the Dallas game was going to dictate the kind of season they were going to have. And they ended up not having a good year. Now, again, they were better towards the end of the year. They were more competitive. They, won games they shouldn't have won. Or at least you didn't think we're going to win. So that's a credit to Dable. But, yeah, I mean, the team just it took a massive step back from 2022. And, we'll see what ends up happening next year. But they got to surround whoever's playing quarterback with playmakers. And Saquon Barkley is a part of that equation if they really want to bring him back. Now, they got to try to figure out something. But, Barkley's now getting older. I mean, I still think he's got good years ahead of him. But, again, we talk about the running back position and how that position ages, faster than other positions. And yeah, Barkley's getting up there in his late 20s. That's what we're talking about. He's getting older, his late 20s. That's, that's when you start to decline. I mean, it's crazy to say that, but that's just how the running back position is viewed now. So, I mean, listen, again, Barkley coming back would be great for the Giants. If they don't franchise tag him, if I'm Saquon Barkley, unless the Giants offer you a contract that you can't refuse, I try to go elsewhere because there are better situations out there. Again, the Texans, the Ravens, I mean, the Chargers, they got a lot of things they need to fix, but they got their franchise quarterback. And I think the Chargers could turn it around next year and be a team that can compete for a playoff spot. Right now with the Giants, I don't view that. I really don't. Not until they fix the offensive line, they fix, they get more playmakers for whoever's playing quarterback to throw to. Because the Darren Waller trade didn't really pan out. Which, unfortunately, my friends and I kind of said, yeah, I mean, he's going to probably play, half the season, and then he's going to get hurt. And that's what happened. He got hurt. And that doesn't mean that Waller can't be a good player for this team, but yeah, I mean, he's not durable. So, yeah, I mean, again, this is a team, and you look at the division, the Giants are in with the Commanders right now. The Eagles and the Cowboys, those are the top two teams. I said this right yesterday. Until the Giants figure it out on the offensive side of the ball, and, I think the defense, is up and coming, but the offense, it's still a work in progress. And the offensive line, it's been a problem for years. They just cannot fix it, no matter what they do. And you look at some of these other teams, they fixed their offensive line in one offseason. The Giants can't do that. So, and again, if you're a Saquon Barkley fan and you're a Giant fan, you want him to come back. Yeah, I want him to come back. But at the same time, well, for me, I've said this. If he leaves, I'm not going to be devastated over it. But, again, you're losing your top playmaker then. That's the other way you got to look at it. Is you're going to lose your top playmaker if he doesn't come back. Because, I mean, you look at the receivers and, Jalen Hyatt could be a good player for them. Darius Slayton, Isaiah Hodgins. I mean, it's just, who scares you? At the wide receiver position. Waller was supposed to be that guy, but that didn't end up working out. I mean, they brought in Paris Campbell. I mean, he really was a non-factor. It just, this is a team that's just kind of been stuck in the mud for a long time. And you thought they finally got out of it when they made the playoffs in 2022. But kind of back in the same position they've been in, for the last several years. And, are Joe Shane and Brian Dable the guys to fix it? I still think they are, but if you're a Giant fan, confidence was definitely lost, especially after the first game of the year, 40-0. And again, I was happy that I didn't have to watch that game. I didn't watch a single second of that game because I was, at my cousin's wedding. But man, that was just. Then of course I went back and watched the highlights of the game. But still, I was happy that I did not watch a single second of that game. And and leading up to that game, I was joking, saying, "Oh yeah, the Cowboys will probably win like 40-17 or whatever," like as a joke. But again, I was like, I don't know. We'll see. Again, game's going to dictate the kind of season they're going to have, and what happened? 40-0. And again, that just shows how far the gap is between the Giants and Dallas. Now, the Eagles, I think maybe the gap is a little bit closer because the Giants actually were competitive both times. But then again, that's just because the Eagles weren't playing good towards the Giants caught the Eagles when they weren't playing well. So, the following year, next year, we'll see what ends up happening. On top of that, the Giants haven't won in Philly since 2013. I was in middle school. They have not won in Philly in a decade. Like, that is just insane. But that's where it all goes back to the gap. The Giants have to find a way to close the gap. Now, are they going to be able to do that? At some point they will, but not right now. Because again, you got question marks at quarterback. The offensive line is still a mess. I mean, there's so many issues that I don't think they're going to be able to correct in one off season. But again, just got to wait and see. But look, Joe Schoen has spoken very highly of Barkley. They want him back. I mean, it only helps the Giants if they bring him back. Because, again, you don't bring him back, then that's another position you're going to have to address. Because then you're going in with Eric Gray as your top running back. So, it's, again, he's going to be one of the top running backs on the market. If he gets there, unless, of course, they place the franchise tag on him. So, we'll keep an eye on it. We'll definitely keep an eye on it. But, yeah, so that's pretty much it with the show for today. Like I said, there's a couple of things that I'll probably talk about more. I know that, again, some comments, the Browns had on Nick Chubb, and, I also wanted to touch upon Mecole Hardman and what he had to say about the Jets, his time with the Jets. There's a couple of things I have in mind of what we can get into tomorrow. I also saw something with the Chiefs, and they could franchise tag L'Jarius Sneed, but then they could try to trade him. So that's something to also look at as well. But yeah, I mean, we're moving along here in the off season. We're a little over a month, well, around a month until the baseball season officially starts. I know we got spring training now, but the regular season will begin end of March. We got the NBA and the NHL moving towards playoff time. March Madness is coming up. Can't wait for that. So yeah, and football. Listen, we got the Spring Football League. Don't forget about that. The UFL. That's coming up. That's coming up. So, I may do some, some segments on that possibly. Some topics, or maybe just kind of, do some quick updates, in segments, not do a full-on 15-minute segment, but yeah, so, you thought football was over? Listen, we got the off-season, we got the UFL, the draft, and Combine's also upon us as well, so... Yeah, but that's pretty much it for the show. So, I appreciate you guys tuning in for today. Again, we'll be back again tomorrow. Same time, same place. So, until then, I'm Kenneth Grunfelder signing off from the GSMC Football Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. Have a good day, and I will see you guys next time. Take care.
Mm-hmm. 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 Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet. Damn.